Welcome to the second day of the Goa Arts and Literary Festival, and a very special event for us. As you know, over the course of the last few years, the festival has had some very distinguished moments, and we've been honored to host some exclusive launches of some very special books, which have lasted over the years. We are very proud of some of the books which had made their national debuts here. And I have the feeling that for decades to come, this will be one of them. We're very proud and very pleased to host the launch of The Adivasi Will Not Dance by Mr. Hansda Sowvendra Shekhar. On our panel today are Jerry Pinto, who doesn't really need a huge introduction in Goa. He's incredibly multifaceted as a literary and creative force. His own brilliant translation of Baluta will be discussed tomorrow. We have Goa's own eminent Konkani writer Damodar Mauzo, and we have the publisher of The Adivasi Will Not Dance, Mr. Ravi Singh, who also doesn't require much of an introduction, but whatever there is to be done in the publishing world in India, Mr. Ravi Singh has done it, and now he does it for Speaking Tiger. The Adivasi Will Not Dance came to my attention curiously via social media. I don't know why that happened, why this book had to come to my attention via social media, but it did, and I was immediately stunned by it and keenly pursued the opportunity to have its exclusive launch in Goa. And yesterday I was talking to Hansda a little bit. Hansda is unique in many ways. The topic is unique, the subject matter is unique. He's a medical doctor who does very important work in Jharkhand. He's from Jharkhand. Hansda also is a Santhal. He comes from a community of Santhals. Yesterday on the bus over to the Museum of Goa, we were discussing the Santhals, and I asked him who's the most famous Santhal, and he named someone who I had never heard of, and probably you've not. I think actually he is the most famous Santhal, and certainly he will be the most famous Santhal. Then I asked him how many Santhals are there in the world. So he said, should I look on Wikipedia? So I said, no, tell me off the top of your head. I'd like to know how many Santhals are there. He was asking me about the Goans before that, and I told him that there are only around, there are 1.6 million in Goa is the population, but probably Goans are only around 800,000. So he said Santhals are probably 1 million, right? But I went home and looked on Wikipedia, and there are more than 6 million Santhals in the world. Okay? Now the thing is, when we're talking about literature and we're talking about at this Goa Arts and Literary Festival, we have all these connections. We've been talking about the literature of Singapore for years now. We go back to Singapore again and again. Singapore has this wonderful literary tradition. There are less than 6 million Singaporeans in the world, and they have this marvelous literary tradition. And this year we are talking to Igo Figueiredo, who is this Goan Norwegian, who is the premier biographer of Ibsen today. There are less than 5 million, or there are around 5 million Norwegian. So let's talk about scale here. We're talking about something that's very significant, and that's just a fact I wanted to put out to you today, something to keep in mind. This book is very unique. As Hansda said, it has nothing to do with activism. In the Santhal literary tradition, to the extent that I now learned a little bit about it, there's folklore and there's activism. I have a couple of books of folklore from Santhal, but there's nothing quite like this. I think it's a unique book. I'm going to embarrass him and perhaps myself by saying when I read it, it reminded me of a young James Baldwin. And I think that is the category we must look at Hansda's work in. It's extremely distinguished. I look forward to much more from him. I know that he will be back to Goa because we will invite him again and again. So proud to have your book launch here, Hansda. Thank you so much for coming here to do it. And with that, over to the book launch, the formal part of the book launch. A big hand, please, for this very special book. Let's formally launch the book, and we have a form where everyone gets up and holds the book up for the photograph. Please, let's do that. You can hold the books together. Congratulations. The exclusive launch of the Adivasi Will Not Dance. Soon to be available, I'm sure, with Mr. Singh's good offices in many languages and in many bookstores in many countries around the world. Jerry has other things to do as well, but so I'm going to pass the microphone to him first.
I just wanted to ask you, Hansda, that now that we've talked a lot about Santals and James Bond and all the rest of it, do you feel any sense of responsibility, whether that's real or imagined or imposed on you from the outside, to be the voice of the Santal community?
I don't feel any responsibility at all, whether real or imagined. I don't know, maybe in the future I might feel responsible, but responsibility-wise, they are still quite alien towards them.
I thought we should just get that out of the way, that this notion that the Santal writer must be the voice of the Santal. Actually, probably you have to be the voice of Hansda Sowvendra Shekhar, and then sort of figure out all the other voices that people would like you to be.
I'm still quite confused as to what I'm going to do next, so I cannot really assure anyone that I'm going to be my own voice, so let's see when that's going to come. Then we can see the rest.
Well, you asked the question that I wanted to ask. But, leading from that, similar question which I had in mind was, many writers, they think that they're shackled by, a place or a particular society that they're writing about, and then they make quite a noise about being able to write, let's say, about people in Iceland, America, why are they doing that? And you're very, very rooted in the society that you write about. Has that ever occurred to you that maybe you should move out of the video that you've been writing about and write something else?
If I will go to Iceland someday, I'll write a book about Iceland as well. But for now, I'm comfortable writing about things that I know and I'm going through.
Okay, so no, just tell us a bit about the first book, Rupi Baske. I mean, I know because we've interacted, but I think it would be useful to know how the novel began.
The novel began a long time ago. It began right from my childhood because, like I mentioned in the acknowledgement page, it was inspired by an incident which occurred in my own village with a family. And in 2011, I thought that maybe because I've been hearing a lot about that family from my family, and I've been gossiping about it as well. So in 2011, I thought maybe I should write it down. And I was still in medical college at that time. I played truant for some time and 5 months out. I mean, I did not stay absent for 5 months, but I stayed up from 11 o'clock in the night to 4 a.m. in the morning, and I finished it.
Did you share the manuscript with anybody when you were writing it?
No, when I was writing, I did not share it with anybody. But there is a friend I trust. We are on Facebook. Her name is Sumana Roy. And she, after the book was over, I sent out the manuscript. I mentioned it on the acknowledgement page. I'm just telling it out here. And she was the one who suggested that and she said that yes, this is a very good, and immediately she told me that you send it out to David Arad.
Yeah.
Obviously I got the response from Ravi Singh.
Well, I laid my hand on the book very late, but I made it a point to read the title story, and I was really amazed. There is no story as such in it, but then yet it is so engaging. The reading was so engaging. I was really stunned by the not only the quality of your writing, but also the extent to which the Santals are made to suffer. Of course, there are marginalized communities all over, and in Goa we also have some people, we people, so-called civilized people, we take the people on the margins for granted. we have our own ethnic societies like the Gowda community, Kunbi community. Hardly anything is written about them, and whatever is written is by the elite class. So we don't get the basic realities faced by these people. Now, in our attempt to bring them in the mainstream culture, as we say, not they, but then we are losing so much. You see, most of the roads of Goa were constructed by these people on the margin, Gowda community, and they were experts in that. All the bridges across the rivers were constructed by them, and when the new engineers go and see them, I'll give you my example. In my village, there was a bridge. Earlier it was built for bullock carts. Then the cars started flying, then the buses started flying. For years together, maybe hundreds of years, it is existing. It was existing rather. Then we decided to build a bridge, the cemented, concreted bridge, and it came up. Within 1 year, it had to be closed, and again we reverted to the old bridge. This is the type of expertise that we had, which belonged to the communities on the margin. But unfortunately, they are now being extinct, and this is the state of affairs everywhere in the country, not only in my state. I would like to refer to a film recently made in Goa called Diganta in Konkani. It is made by an eminent filmmaker, Naresh Mothe. It's about the Dangal community. You know, pain that they feel is the same that you feel. Dangal community is a nomadic community, moving from one place to the other. And when their land is possessed by somebody else, they cannot believe that land can belong to somebody. For them, the land is ours. Land belongs to Mother Earth. And they have the right to go from place to place as and when the time requires. It suits them. But then now that with the changing system, they are surprised that land can belong to somebody. So this is what is focused on this in this film, and I'm very happy that you have brought up this issue. Certainly, and also I can refer to another novel which is translated as The Upheaval by OUP. It is originally in Konkani as Achev, wherein it depicts the problems faced by the so-called naive Goa or serene Goa because of mining. It was written in the early 70s, maybe early 70s, and it is, even today it is so relevant. So I'm sure when I went through the book, I browsed through the book, but I meticulously read the title story. I felt so guilty at the same time as I was reading, and I feel we all should remember that we all must read. It's a must-read book, and I think it may not be read by Santals, but it should be read by everybody other than Santals, because we do not know what is their suffering. Hopefully, this sensitizes the people to their sufferings.
Shekhar, I wanted to ask what Mr. Mauzo was saying about the politics of it. And all your work is very personal, but also very political. But for instance, the title story Adivasi is very political. But there are also other stories where they're set in Santali society. The politics is there, but it isn't upfront. So that, how important is that for you always to show certain reality, make a political statement? From what I can gather from your writing, it is inevitable, it will happen when you write, but I doubt if you actually set out to write a story about
No, actually, the title story was first published in the Dhali Review in 2014. It was the monsoon issue, published I think in August. And it was, at that time it was just a very short story. I mean, the kind of story which you could read on just one web page. It wasn't this long. But once I started editing with Anurag, a lot of things came to my mind, like if the story is going into print, it's going to stay forever. So, should I put in some other issues which I might be willing to talk about? Because when I've spoken so much, maybe if I speak a few more words, it wouldn't really matter. But it really wasn't an intention to do political thing or something. I just wrote about what I was seeing. It was like an observation. In a lot of interviews, I have been asked this question: if I had a political motive or something. I said, no, there's nothing political. It's just what I'm seeing and what everybody else is seeing. Had some other person been in my place or the place where I work, if some other person decides to do a story on this, then he's going to write the same thing that happened to him.
May I ask you, Ravi, you have been dealing with books. Can there be any writing on any books which are not political? Without any political issues?
Well, I suppose everything is political, you know.
It may not be party politics.
No, I mean political in the larger sense of the word is what it's saying. That is what I meant when, well, in Shekhar's case, it is given the society that he's writing about and given, you know, what they've had to put up with, continue to, it becomes political in a more obvious manner. But I don't know, I mean, I think if, I suppose even you know, mass market pulp fiction is in its own way political. I think everything is political. I mean, the choices you make, what you do, what you don't do, etc. Yeah. But you know, what I really like is what, like, for instance, Shekhar does. He combines the personal and the political. And there is, you know, you may disagree, but I think there, you know, there's great intensity, very powerful writing. There's also anger, but there's a strange kind of innocence or two in his writing, you know, and that is what makes it very special. And I'll actually come to this bit about innocence and eccentricity with, you know, read from an interview that you once did. But before that, I wanted to ask you about in these stories particularly. It's unusual what you do. I mean, there are compromised characters, compromised situations that you write about, and there's this minor boy who's accused of molesting a little girl. There are, you know, well, for lack of a better word, there are very intense, also promiscuous women who love abusive men and stay with them. So it is, I mean, I think people would call it sort of politically incorrect also in a way, right, when you're writing about these things. But I just find that fascinating, the human stories that you write about, and politics apart. Yeah, yes, you do.
Actually, that story about the boy who has been accused of raping a girl, I mean, both of them are minor. The boy is just 10 years old and the girl is like 4 years old. I think that is what I saw happening. And that woman, Mohini, who is in an abusive relationship with her first husband and then her second husband, I think that is how it is. So it came out that way. I couldn't have found any other, you know.
So and largely you said what you write it is from observation. It is what you see.
Yes.
Yeah. And so when there was an interviewer recently who asked you, you know, writing about invisible people, and I still remember what you said, that, you know, yes, I've written a few books and people know me, I interact with people, but I'm also invisible.
Yes, I'm invisible. I'm a part of them.
It's very difficult to write something subjectively yet objectively. Well, these are your sufferings, not only your community, your own sufferings. That's just now you said, and that too you said smilingly. It's amazing the way you look at the things so objectively. How difficult it is to look at it, because you are a writer. As a writer, you cannot become very subjective, because you have to think of the others also, the readers and all. But here you are subjective, at the same time you are objective. How difficult it is to look at the things that you have suffered, your community is suffering from, and putting it across.
Actually, when I'm facing a problem, I don't want a problem at all. I do what they do in the aeroplanes. The air hostesses, they advise you to first help yourself, then help others. That is what I do. I first find my way out, and then I help others find their way out, and then later on maybe we can sit together and analyze what has happened. Because see, like that story about this boy who has been accused of raping a girl. I don't know whether it's obvious or not that it was like the case which we had seen. Okay, so okay, there's nothing you can do. I think the guy has come with the police. What can you do there? A case has already been filed against him, and as a doctor, as a sarkari employee, there's nothing much you can do.
In the same story, there's another thing which, you know, people would normally not do, is dispossessed, who are actually kind of doing the other person in. It's the enemy kind of relationship. So it isn't a who with the family whose daughter, they say has been raped. They falsely accused.
It might be falsely accused. I mean, it hasn't really been implied in the story,
right.
But could be. Because see, we have this notion everywhere that if a person is an Adivasi or an Dalit, then possibly they are being, what you call it, oppressed. But there are instances which I have seen that it is not always true. I mean, a person's social position, how much money a person has, how much political power or backing that person has, even this decides whether he is oppressed or not. So in this case, it was not exactly the Adivasi family who was being oppressed, because the Adivasi family, it had money. Okay, but this is a Thakur family. Thakurs are Babas. In Sakayutam, we would be categorizing them in BC backward class. So, that Thakur family, it had no money. It had no, what you can call it, political clout. So it was those who were being oppressed. So situations, they depend. It is not always the fixed thing that if a person comes from, a disadvantaged position, he has to be oppressed. But victim can also become the perpetrator.
I recollect the main problem that you have dealt with in the Adivasi will not dance is I would say your attachment to the land. But this has been going on for the centuries. When Indraprastha was built by the Pandavas, what they did was deforested. They went on cutting the forest. And insensitive to the feelings and the lifestyle of the people who were living in the forest. They were the Adivasis. But we are told that they were the demons. So Pandavas killed so many demons to create Indraprastha. So this has been glorified in our myth also. And today also we see the same thing. When Adivasis suffer, hardly anybody comes to know about it across their own community probably. No coverage in the media, no coverage in the newspapers, whether print media or visual media. We have never seen any Adivasis problems are being discussed there, as discussed the Dadri lynching or other problems. It's surprising that we are becoming more and more insensitive to the sufferings of Adivasis in particular and Dalits in general. What is the solution, you think? Because what you have done is projecting the problems. But what is, in your opinion, now that you are educated, I'm very happy that more and more people are getting the education as a result of which they are becoming sensitive and they can take their problems across their own community.
I cannot really suggest a solution, but what I would say is that maybe we should speak out. Maybe somehow the Adivasis, I'll talk about Santhal here. Maybe we should have this ability to speak out and express ourselves that look, this is an injustice happening to us. Maybe we are more laid back. Like I'm saying, I myself am laid back. Why should I blame someone else? So maybe we should be more vocal about things.
Talk about that a bit. You said you yourself. What do you mean? Can you just explain?
Yeah, I'm laid back means if something happens to me, okay, it will be all right in a few hours. I have this attitude about myself.
Right.
Just like we Goans, because we have also the same nature. By and large, most of the Goans are have that laid back quality. As a result of which, today, as Vivek said, we are probably 8 lakhs, and the population of Goa is more than 15 lakhs. So we are getting marginalized day by day, maybe because of our attitude, laid back attitude. I hope it doesn't happen to you.
Let's take a question.
Can I ask questions from the audience?
Yeah, of course. I must congratulate you because I really love your writing and have been following you up. I have one question that I know you read a lot. I know that you read Western and Indian literatures tremendously and constantly. I was just wondering, there is this whole body of literature that's come up. Shivakam is sitting here, which we call Dalit literature, and there's a whole aesthetics that has been worked around it as to what does Dalit literature mean in terms of ideology, politics, aesthetics, everything. But when it comes to, the tribal context, whether it's Santali or any other, and more so in Santali, which is highly developed, we have one proponent, and that's Shweta Devi. It's a huge, kind of big name, Gyanpith Award winner, but not the Santali herself, writing on Santalis. But we haven't dwelt enough on what are the aesthetics. Okay, you're very simply, disarmingly saying very beautifully, well, that's what I experience, that's what I see, and I write, right? But I'm just wondering, as a writer, are you conscious of any aesthetics that go into the making of your story, your community's story? Is there any consciousness about it, or is it just observation, sincerity, and working out how you want to? I'm talking about the how part of it. What is very clear, you're observing, you're writing. But how you are to put it across? Are you conscious about what your challenges are?
Not at all conscious about what I'm doing. And first I'll tell you, I'm not really comfortable with categorizing literature, Dalit literature, Adivasi literature, whatever it is. And I have read just one book by Shweta Devi, and it was not exactly about Adivasi. That is Hansda Sowvendra Shekhar. I read it in the English translation from Singh. The cover was very beautiful.
But just one, can I just, just to give you a sense of how subversive he is in his own way. I mean, you ask him his questions, that's how it is. That's, there's nothing, he won't read larger meanings into it, which is a great thing. But just to give you a sense of his typical day, right? So I'm going to read from this interview that he, and I found that completely disarming, but also very clever. And very, very intelligent in the manner that you were responding. So he was asked about, what do you do when you don't write? And he said, my favorite activities are sleeping and eating. I sleep a lot. I find eating therapeutic. Right? I love watching films. I want to learn to knit. And for a whole paragraph he talks about knitting needles and buying yarn, and it's. I mean, do you actually think, like today in the morning? You were typing out some replies to somebody who sent you questions, some interviewer. Yeah. So, I mean, just to give you a sense of it's not just a sense of humor. He actually, there is, when I said that there's a strange kind of innocence in his writing, it's also apparent here, in the kind of,
I really want to learn how to knit. I have learned how to knit one line, but I have not learned how to start the next row.
So I want to supplement Sukrita's question. She was very doubtful about your consciousness, whether you're consciously aware of these issues and writing about it, or you just observe. But I am very sure that you are very conscious, and though I'm not read, because Santals are quite conscious people even before anybody was fighting for India independence. They were in large numbers, 10,000 Santals assembled and fought the British. So when there was no communication and they were aware of their rights, and now in independent India after so much education, you must be writing consciously. So I don't doubt it.
Madam, I would like to
Go ahead.
Shivkamiji, yes. Even before, it was in 1855 when the Santhal Hool took place. That place where it started, Bhuvnad, it is just like 100 kilometers from where I work. And I went there in January 2014. I saw the place where, I went to the village where Sidhu Murmu and Kanu Murmu, they were born, and the ground where they, brought together all the Santhals from all over the place. And that was, like a century before Facebook and Twitter were invented. So it is quite ironic that even before modern telecommunications were there, they could mobilize such a lot of people. But today when we are having all those means of communication, there is absolutely So,
Hansda, congratulations on your book. Hansda, congratulations on
The very title is very obvious that they don't need the mercy of others and they can find their own liberation or rights. So we don't put words into his mouth and try to show our concern because he's very much concerned. That's what I think.
I want to say anything to this on this? Okay, Srinath.
One is the question on the title. There was a famous book called Elephants, Who Says Elephants Can't Dance? Did you know about the title and how this title came about? Second, have you thought about expanding this theme to movies which have done the maximum damage to the community and the whole notion of tribalness in India for decades? Bollywood, yeah.
Answer to question one, no, I have not heard of that story, Elephants. Who Says Elephants Can't Dance? Maybe I'll look it up on Google now. And answer to question two, yes, I do believe that Bollywood and films have done damage to the Adivasi identity. And this I had pointed out in a passage in Ravi. You see, there is a Tata Sky ad, which says Tata Sky Laga Dala like Chinga Lala. And the Chinga Lala refrain, it has been taken from that song, Hum Bewafa Hargiz Na The from Shalimar. Okay, and it shows, apparently they are Adivasis who are dancing on the shore temple. And and yes, and Chinga Lala who was actually that, refrain is for Adivasis. Yes, all those flowers and feathers and all. Okay, and so that part I commented on that at the end of Ravi, where her son is getting married and he gets Tata Sky connection from his father-in-law as a gift. And one of the Dulha's Sala, he tells Dulha, Jamai Babu, Chinga Lala dekhiye. So that was a comment.
This is absolutely wonderful, and I know everyone wants more of Hansda, but we're going to restrict it to one more comment, and then Hansda will sign copies of the Adivasi will not dance on the lawns, right, Hansda?
Yeah, just one. I think we might want to use another word instead of calling women promiscuous, because it's it's only patriarchal societies that value monogamy.
Yeah, I did qualify that, and men are equally promiscuous in the stories.
Yeah. Also, I think
It's fine.
most of the question seems to suggest that if you have a sort of middle class domestic life, then that's normal. And if your life happens to be something else, then that becomes political, and then he's being asked to explain whether he's political. So I think that basic assumption can be changed as well.
Yes, you can comment on this one.
What should I say?
Nothing. Promiscuous was the word I used. You don't have to answer for that. The rest you can.
Another last point I would like to make. Besides your concern for land and the tribal people, what is more important, I felt, it is not the concern for poverty. It is concern for life, dignity of life of santans that you are trying to uphold. Yeah, and after reading that, I got the impression that we should hold the Santal community in high regard or in give them proper dignity of life.
I don't know how much of it will be followed once we leave this place and once I go back to my own place. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that things change for all of us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ravi. Thank you, Bhai. Thank you, Hansda Sowvendra Shekhar.